Hello, and welcome to this quick look at an unstructured 5-mark exam question which specifically compares two bonding types. So we're going to look at how to read this question first of all. So at the beginning it says describe and explain the electrical conductivity of sodium oxide Na2O and sodium in their solid and molten states. So describe and explain basically is two different command words. Recognizing and understanding what they mean and what they're asking you to do is an essential part of being skilled at reading the question. Once you're good at reading a question, then you'll know what to put down for its answer. So in this particular question, describe means state in words what the electrical conductivity of the two substances are. And in the question, explain means give reasons for what you've just described. So looking at the second part of the sentence where it mentions sodium oxide and sodium in their solid and molten states, this gives you the context. So in other words, you must say something about not just sodium as a metal, but sodium as a metal in solid and liquid form, and sodium oxide in solid and liquid form. So there's actually four different things to think about there. So two separate substances, and for each one, two separate physical states. Now at this point, it might give you a steer or a couple of clues as to how you might want to structure your answer, how you might want to lay it out. So taking each substance and putting it in two separate parts of the answer space, that allows you to keep your ideas separate so you don't get confused between one and the other. Once you've parked your ideas, this allows your brain to unpack them logically and put them in order. Again, preventing the sense of exam panic or getting confused or tripping up over what you're trying to say. So sodium oxide is a solid. Because it's an ionic lattice, it doesn't conduct electricity because there's no mobile ions or electrons in the ionic lattice to carry charge. Once it's molten, it does conduct electricity because now the mobile ions are free to move and therefore carry charge. In sodium metal, like any metal, it conducts electricity in both states because we have delocalized electrons carrying the charge. So in constructing this answer, you'll see I haven't used up much of the space. I've actually deliberately tried to minimize how much I've written. Full sentences aren't needed, but you need to make sure you are making valid points and not contradicting yourself by accident or saying the same thing twice. The way to prevent this is to try and keep your answers short. Now this is a sort of applied skill or a acquired skill rather, so it's worth practicing this well ahead of any tests on the topic in hand. So you don't have to try and fill up the space provided. The idea is that less is more. So let's check what we've written against the mark scheme. So the first mark is to do with conductivity of sodium. So I'm going to get my highlighter and point to where I've got that mark. Sodium conducts in the molten and the solid form. So it says here, conducts electricity in both states, solid and liquid. So that gets us that mark. The second mark is the reason for conductivity of sodium. It has delocalized electrons. I've mentioned that, so that gets me mark 2. So mark 3 is sodium oxide conducts when molten and not when solid. So I've said that in two separate places. I've got that mark from those two sentences. Molten sodium oxide has ions which are mobile. Now I've said that here. I didn't mention electrons. It's nothing to do with electrons. The electrons are not actually free to move and carry charge. It's the ions that are. So it's very important not to get that confused. And mark number 5 comes from saying solid sodium oxide has ions which are fixed in position, or ions are not mobile. So there's different ways of saying that. I said that they're not mobile, so therefore that means I got it through this particular part of the mark scheme. So to get that mark fully, I need to also mention the fact it's an ionic lattice. and I mentioned the words Einiglatters there. Okay, I hope this has been a useful look at how to structure answers, how to read the question, and also how to minimize how much writing you end up doing so that it helps save you time in the exam. So as always, thanks for listening. Until next time, see you soon.